we go. I think it's recording.
Thank you.
No problem. So as you can see here, this is the one, this whole snippet was here except for this line. So Optimize required you to add this to it. In addition to that, because Optimize is basically manipulating your live page to show another variation of that page or even a split test as a redirect, they ask you to also add this snippet above it, which hides, I guess it prevents the page from flashing for a brief moment, which to the user could be confusing or detrimental to the experience. So where did I find this information? So let's see, it's in here somewhere. Install Optimize. So where it says add Optimize to your website, this basically shows you what I just showed you on our header.php file. We have copied the Google Optimize plugin, which just like I showed you a minute ago, I put it in between the create and the page view tag. And then this is the minimize page flickering snippet that they ask you to include, which as you can see, pasted just before your updated analytics tracking code. So this has all been verified. The page is working. The test is working. So how did it get set up? How did we set up a test? I'll show you what we have existing, the one that we started this morning. So first and foremost, you can give it a title. Can we edit the title? That's the question. Yeah, so experiment information. There's an edit button right here on this overflow menu. You can edit the title of the experiment. You can run diagnostics to see if Optimize is installed correctly. And as you can see, it's verified with no errors as of Friday the 29th. So why not we run diagnostics again? I can show you how that works. So it's going to load the page that I'm doing the test on. Optimize is now taking over, and it came back with Optimize being correctly installed. Let's say you didn't include the page flickering script. They would say that Optimize, although the one require tag for the analytics snippet is included, if you didn't have the page snippet, they would warn you about that. They would say it's correctly installed, but you might want to install that snippet as well, or make sure it's on your page. In this case, you can see it's just a green check. All right, so after that, you can see we have just some information about Google Analytics on the bottom right, pretty much letting you know that it's linked up to the correct property and view. So the property is Health Coach Institute, and you might have multiple views in your Google Analytics account. As you get more and more familiar with Google Analytics, you can see how there might be different kinds of views. For us, it's the all website data view. This is the one that Nick Haybear and our guys from the data team are using, at least using the most. I'm not really personally familiar with the other two. I think there were 3 views for HCI. I'm not really familiar with the other 2. Either or, you're probably not going to have to manipulate that. So up here on the left, you can see we have variants. You always have a control in an experiment, and you have at least one variant in an experiment. The control is unchanged, and it points to a particular page on the site. This is set up as the editor page. Let's see if we can change that here. Need to get used to that myself. All right, so it looks like just clicking that takes you to the page. I guess the original, you're allowed to make changes if you want to, but I don't really know why you would want to do that. You typically don't want to change anything in a control for any sort of experiment that you're doing. Let's let's see. So it tells you the experiment information there, but you can't really change the location. All right. Life Coach Hero image. This is our variant where we're testing our original page, which has Stacy Morgenstern jumping in a field. We're testing that against what the image is for the Life Coach landing page, which seems to be performing a little bit better than Health Coach. And we think that's possibly to do with the background image just being a little bit more relevant. Maybe it looks more fun, more up to date. There are a number of reasons for this, but that's the number of potential reasons, which is why we're testing this out. We can edit the variant info here, the name. Let's see if we wanted to look at this web preview. So this button allows you to get different previews of each page. As you can see, it's not Stacy jumping in the field. This is the image that we usually use on our Life Coach page. I'll show you guys how to actually set this up. I just want to walk you through.
Looks like the content is also different as well.
It's not. But let's look. Okay.
The image does change a lot.
Are you on mute?
No.
Okay. Cool. As you can see here, we have, you can put on mute now. I was just wondering when you were talking just a second ago if you were on mute. We have this column here shows you active visitors. So this is one cool thing. Since it's linked up to Google Analytics, you get to actually see where the current sessions are. So 2 active visitors on both pages, pretty cool. Here we also see a column which basically shows you which part of the experiment is weighed more than the other. How much of the traffic are we allocating to one version of the experiment versus the other. In this case, it's a 50-50 split. If we had a control and 2 variants, we would see like a 33% split. Or you can just, you can mess around with it as you please.
Quick question. The active users is cool. We don't have that in Optimizely. Where do you enter the URL for this one?
I'll show you. That's done in the beginning, I believe. So I don't think I'm allowed to actually edit that right now. So
I'm not sure. Did they show you a way to edit on the page?
Yep. I'm going to show you that.
Yep.
Just walking in first, yeah.
Right. Should we do that? Like what you said, we don't have to edit anything. We just do it on the URL itself, and then we'll do it afterwards.
I'll show you both. So you can basically do one of 2 things. You can redirect to a different URL, which then obviously you wouldn't have to do any front-end editing through Optimize, or you can do what this test was set up like. So I'll show you that. So you can click changes here, and you see there are 2 style changes.
Okay, sorry for preempting anything.
No worries, man. Feel free to ask as many questions as you need. Okay. So Optimize basically detects any container on your site, and then it knows all the style tags that have been added, any JavaScript that's been added, or I think you can add your own. So in this case, I found a wrapping container. One of them had the information. Why is there's supposed to be a window that opens up on the right here. What the heck is it? There we go. This might be because the test is currently running, that it looks a little bit different for me. As you can see, at least I had located a div element. Basically, I found the element that housed the background image, and you're just able to change the value of the URL. So I went into WordPress. Actually, I went to the Life Coach page, inspected the element, and found the background image URL of the Life Coach page and just replaced it here. And this style here, so there is a second style, and this was, I think, just to change the opacity of the overlay, because for the Health Coach image, the overlay is slightly different. So I wanted to make it a little bit more consistent with what we were looking at on the Life Coach page. All right, so let's see. I guess it doesn't allow you to edit elements like this when the test is already running. So I can't seem to, it's not really allowing me to do any more here.
So basically, any edits that we need to make for any of these pages for the A/B testing, we don't have to go to WordPress itself. We just make it through the Optimizely.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so down here, after you have your variants, you can see how it's configured and targeted. Please always include some kind of a description and hypothesis for your test. It doesn't need to be 5,000 characters like it allows you to be, but at least some kind of a brief description of what this experiment is about can help other people who necessarily didn't set up the test but need to navigate the results and everything, better understand what this experiment's about if this was their first time looking at it. Then you can see on the left here we have experiment objectives, and I think I'm confirming now that since the test is currently running, this is a little bit different, because normally it would show you a button where you can click to add another objective. So this objective is pretty simple and straightforward. If the user reaches the sign up and confirmation page, consider that a conversion. So it's a basic page view. As long as the page starts with /signup/confirmation, consider that a conversion and do it only once per session. And Google Analytics is also really nice, where it validates these objectives and rules dynamically. This number was a little bit different earlier this morning. It was a little bit less. So as you can see, we are getting conversions, and it counts that. And we have our targeting. How many visitors are getting targeted to each, just like the 50% and 50% up top. This shows you a little bit of a different view. And you can tweak that as you wish. And you can also add other conditions. But this is pretty much locked right now since the test is running. Then you can see the reporting. I think because I'm gonna have to look at this tomorrow just to see if anything changes, because right now it says no results to report. I'm not sure if that's a timing thing. It might also be that the objective perhaps isn't set up correctly. So one day to run wouldn't hurt, but this would be the tab that you obviously want to look at your results. Guys, can you hold on one second? All right, never mind. All right, so let's just act as if we are starting a new experiment. We would go to create experiment. We want to give it a name. This is where we decide the URL to test. Okay. Like I said, we couldn't edit this with a running test, but initially you entered the URL. So let's do healthcoachinstitute.com. Actually, let's do one that can actually test right now without having to alter anything. I'm sorry, hold on. Hello? Hey. Oh, I'm on a call. Can I call you back? I'm doing all right. Love you. Bye. All right, that was 2 calls in a row. I was just making sure nothing was wrong. All right, so what's a good URL to test?
So the homepage.
Something a little more buried.
Become a
Sure. All right, so you choose your URL, and then you can choose to do one of three tests: an A/B test, multivariant test, which is test variants with two or more different sections. It says beta, so they must have just added that feature. Then you have redirect test, which is test separate web pages identified by different URLs or paths. So I think this is to answer your original question, Mario, where we can do an A/B test where we're changing the code on one URL, or we can just create a whole nother page with a whole nother URL using the redirect page, redirect test. But I'll show you the A/B test since that was the example I was trying to go over earlier. Okay. You have automatically your original or control of the experiment. No need to really edit that. Now you can create a variant. Bye, Claire. So to edit the variant, you would click where it says 0 changes or however many changes you may have done.
It's a lot simpler than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
I tried to write like a whole bunch of code for these A/B tests.
Well, we'll get into that. Sometimes there is. All right. So we could find anything on the page to change. Remember I told you that I couldn't click on those elements? That was because the test was already running. So like if I wanted to change the background image on this, you can scroll through the container and find any of the styles that might have been applied to that container. Since some containers might have overlays applied, this is where the top breadcrumb nav comes in handy. So right now, I can't really click on the back.
But by the way, this top one is on whenever you have the test only, right?
What was, whenever you what?
Whenever you have optimize, because I'm not seeing that usually on my end. So I'm guessing that you can see the main section div right on top if you have optimize.
Oh yes, yeah, that's only if you're in the optimized platform. So like right now I'm editing a page. As long as you're not editing a page, you're never gonna see this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you have to be the user logged into Optimize. Like if I'm editing a page right now, it's not like other users on the website are gonna see this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to what I was trying to explain. So right now I can't actually click on the background image because there's a layer on top of the background image that gives it a little bit of an overlay. So that's where this breadcrumb nav comes in handy. You can navigate through and try to find where that image is. It's this one, where you can see there's an image, a link to an image for the background property. Then you can switch it out if you'd like. Let's try to do one simple test. We can edit the text. So here you can go edit element. If you don't want to just do styles, you would click edit element. You can edit the text, the HTML. You can insert HTML, or you can even run extra JavaScript. For here, let's just practice what it might look like if we capitalized Health Coach. I feel like that's an easy test that we can get away with. Done. And save. Now you can see it shows that only one change was made. And we can preview it. Capitalized. Okay. So then we have our description and hypothesis. What is the impact of capitalizing the words of coach? And an objective. So earlier, because the test was running, we weren't able to see this button. So we can create a custom objective, or we can choose from a list. I'll show you what choosing from a list looks like. This is where it gets pretty cool since it's hooked up to Google Analytics. You can see all these Google Analytics goals that have been set up prior to ever setting up Optimize. So as long as you have goals that exist in the funnel, these are goals that Nick Hebert had created and is currently tracking within Google Analytics, we could fire one of these events. So it depends. It's going to depend whether or not you want to use something like this. An event technically needs to be fired on the same page, but I have to look into that. So this is where I'm still a little inexperienced with using this platform. I'm not sure if it's going to, let's say, if you have to reach a confirmation page and then the event fires, is Google Analytics and Optimize following you from page to page and knowing that that event was fired? If, let's say, if you've left the Become a Health Coach page and then the event fires on like the next one. So that's something that kind of need to figure out. But for sure, if you wanted to fire the event on the same page, you would click one of these. So like Mario, we had a test for the webinar on Big Shift. It was removing the player controls, where basically we tested what would be the effect of removing the user's ability to fast forward and rewind the webinar. And we fired the goal that was basically similar to this webinar watched on demand goal. So like if the user was on the variation or the control really, how many users watched 10 minutes or more? There was a similar goal on the Big Shift end, which just declared the user a webinar attendee. So they watched 10 minutes or more, fire the event. That's an example of like a dynamic event firing on the same page. If we wanted to track if the user reached a new page, I believe that's when you want to do custom objective and go to a page view. The number of views, this is what I set up with that Life Coach page. The number of views for a particular web page. So match rules, in this case, the page starts with...
I think I meant the specific results for the removing the controls, because you remember Zio, we were talking about that, and that was causing some problems with the bonuses. So
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
How was the result for that?
I'm not sure if anybody was testing it, so I can't tell you if there's I can't tell you a good answer for that.
Okay.
Like I'm not sure if there was like an optimizing test set up for that or not.
So the test hasn't been conducted yet, James?
I'm not even aware of what you're referring to.
You were saying that the controls were removed in one of the BSB tests. So that's a really good test, I think. And I was wondering what the results for that were. Was the test with controls better or without it was better?
Oh, it wasn't successful.
Oh, okay.
The control, we found out worked a lot better. We kind of knew that going into that test because honestly, with HCI, we tested the same exact thing, and users want to be able to fast forward and rewind, especially when it's a longer webinar. It might seem like a live experience, without having the ability to fast forward or rewind, but obviously not. And it could be an hour to an hour and a half. Like people might not be able to commit themselves to that in one sitting. So they would want to either watch it in chunks on their own, or I think it's more useful to be able to rewind just in case you missed something really important and you needed to like, oh crap, like what was that Bill said? So, yeah.
Thanks for that. I was asking because some of the people were claiming for bonuses, and what Zyle and I were talking about is that they might have not reached the 10-minute mark, which fires off the bonus. So that's one of our theories. So we reduced it to 5 minutes. So just a side note.
Okay.
Another quick question, because I noticed that on this one we said it's a redirect, but the changes were made on this platform. So like in the past, we did the change on the page itself and not here. So is that the way we wanted to do it moving forward? We do the changes here.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the number of changes you'd like to make on the page or how complex it is. If you're making one simple change, such as like just capitalizing 2 letters, it makes sense to stay on the same URL, especially because it doesn't really alter the user's experience. They're not seeing, like, they might have tried to go to /signup or /become a health coach. If it's a redirect page, they're not going to be on that page anymore. So then it's possible that they might wonder, like, okay, well, why am I on this link right now? I thought I went to the other one. So like it's less confusing for them where the URL is staying consistent, and they're just seeing something different. Also,
cool.
A redirect test might make more sense though if you're really changing like almost a completely different template.
Right.
Right. Then it makes sense to have like a different URL, a different page altogether.
So yeah, if that's the case, so you change that also in variant 1, right? So you just basically change the URL.
I believe so. So we'll look at a redirect test and I'll show you how that works.
Okay, awesome.
Just getting back to like the page views, like I set up earlier, for me it would be like, okay, if they will make the objective if the page starts with, you know, /signup/confirmation or whatever. But we're gonna have to just determine what the best goal is, because for this kind of test, it could be anything. Counting method is how many times to fire that event. So in this case, in most cases, it would be once per session. So yeah, let's just discard these changes for now. And we'll show you a redirect test. I'll delete this. All right, create a new one. Just like before, you have your original by default. Our variant, it's probably going to be different since it's a redirect test, the way it's set up, right? So instead of being able to click around and change elements, it's as simple as this, Mario, where you just name the variant and then you change the destination of that variant.
Awesome. Cool.
Right? And that's it. So I feel like I don't want to go any deeper into this right now. I think this is a pretty thorough enough explanation of how this stuff is set up. Do you guys have any other like questions? Anything you want me to go back over?
All good.
Okay.
How much is Optimize?
How much is it? I think it's free.
Nice.
Yeah.
Looks more powerful and
Yeah, this is exactly why we wanted to use it and stop paying for Optimizely, because Optimizely was getting expensive, and
Yeah, it is.
this is free, plus it's hooked up to analytics and anything else with the Google suite, so it just makes sense. I was on the fence about having to learn this, but now I'm really happy with how it's working so far. Like I said, though, I still need to learn how certain things, certain objectives work. So like, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna have to check tomorrow if the way that I set this test up was correct. It's a lot easier with redirect tests because, you know, that's like one thing you need to set up, and it's obviously just gonna track a conversion from one page to the other. So, all right, are we good for now?
So far, so good.
Yeah, and let's like keep the lines of communication open. If one of you are, you know, tasked to start a test, you know, this doesn't need to be the only time I help you guys out. I'm more than happy to help guide along, you know, your first test.
That's good. I may need to reach out to you again, Zyle, because I basically stopped working on all the pages, and so remember I was having problems with JavaScript and uploading to GitHub. So I'm kind of still stuck there since I didn't work on any HCI pages.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be happy to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys. I think that's it for now.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Mario. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mario. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.